So hello you guys, welcome back to my channel. Today's video is such a special one. Today we are talking to the incredible Jennifer Batten, who's an insane guitar player, has the most crazy credits to her name. Like, this lady has played guitar with Michael Jackson on 3 different tours. She has released studio albums. She has worked with Beck. She's currently on tour at the moment. She has, like, I don't even know how many bands that she's juggling at the moment. She is just nuts. You know her. You'd know her sound. You'd know her tone. You'd know her face. She is just sickening. I can't believe she agreed to sit down and do a talk and chat. And she's so cool, so kind and gracious. I always say it about these interviews, about talking to people. The time is the most important thing that you have, so you could share with someone. And anytime someone's kind enough to sit down and talk, I'm like, damn, like, you know, this is fucking nuts, thank you. But this was just next level. And just like so many people that grew up in a musical household, I was raised on Michael Jackson. I have a tattoo, actually, that I don't think anyone ever cops on what it is. It's a Spaceship from Leave Me Alone with the lyrics to Whatever Happens, which might be my favourite song. It's my favourite song by him, but it's one of my favourite songs probably ever. So to get to talk to somebody who was a part of these massive tours and who was a huge part of bringing the show to life, bringing the sound to life, the theatrics, it was just, like, incredible. Getting to talk to her and hear her experience, hear her tour life, hear about her guitar rigs, about the equipment she uses and stuff. It's an absolute treat and a treasure. So yeah, thank you, Jennifer, a billion times over for chatting. I hope you guys enjoy. All of her socials are linked down below. If you want to find Jennifer, follow her anywhere. The links are in the description down below. Here's my chat with Jennifer. Okay, first of all, I just wanted to say a huge thank you for being down to chat and talk and reminisce. I really appreciate it. I know you're a very busy person.
Well, I got a few days off, so we're good to go.
Yeah, you're in the middle of a tour at the moment, aren't you?
I'm between tours. I'm mostly these days I'm working with 4 different Michael Jackson tributes, and I just kind of finished with one, and I'm on 4 dates with another one in a few days, and then back to the first one in Chile. So I'm flying all over the world.
I don't know how you deal with that. Oh my God, the jet
Well,
lag.
yeah, the jet lag, plus I'm getting over a lung infection because not enough sleep and immunity goes down. So that's the downside people often don't know about when you show up to play for them.
Oh, dude, I'm sorry. I hope you make speedy recovery.
Yep.
I had pleurisy as a teenager, and like every few years, it threatens to come back. So I know the pain in the ass that can be.
Yeah, the things you take for granted.
To start things off, I thought that we'd go back to the very beginning for you and to where it all began. Music as a career, I know because I'm in a band myself. Trying to explain to people like this is what I want to do, you know, this is the career I've chosen. It can be tricky. So how did you get into that and navigate those awkward first few years?
Oh gosh. Well, I'll say I got into it because I was so interested in guitar that I went to a musicians institute back when it was only a guitar school. Graduated the third class they ever had, and I was just determined to make a living at it, not having any idea how difficult that would be. So
Yeah.
I started off with a cover band and teaching, which is great. Anybody that can stand teaching, it's a great way to help your income, because it not only keeps guitar in your life day after day, but you kind of have to regurgitate what you've learned, and that just makes it more solid in your own head. So I did a lot of teaching. At one point, I was teaching 7 days a week. In fact, I think I was teaching 7 days a week, and I was in 5 bands by the time I got the Michael Jackson tour. So I was
Wow.
very, very busy.
And then for your kind of inner circle, then like friends and family, were they supportive from the jump?
Yeah, I was very lucky because a lot of parents, with good reason, don't want their kids to get into the music business or any of the arts
Yeah.
because it is very difficult, and to make a living at it is challenging. It's usually feast and famine, and that's what I went through.
Mm. You're lucky that you did have that supportive group around you because it can be tricky. But can you remember the first instrument that you ever got that was yours? And was it good or was it a piece of shit like most of us beginners?
Well, the first one I got, I was 8 years old, and it was probably a piece of shit, but I didn't know any better, so it was fine for me. It
Yeah.
doesn't make sense for parents to buy you a really expensive instrument when you have no idea. what's good and what's not good. But it was good enough to get me through lessons, and especially at that time in the '60s, man, it was very, very unusual for a kid to get an electric guitar for their first guitar, and that's what my dad got me. He was a not a professional, but he was a guitar player as well, and he already had an amp, so that part was taken care of. And I just had a guitar that to me looked like what the Beatles were using, so I was more than happy to have it.
Unusual as well, like you said, for an electric to be your first, but for a girl to
Yeah,
get into like electric guitar, especially back then, must have been unheard of.
yeah, I think it was. So, and I remember when I got my second guitar, which my father also bought me, it was an acoustic Gibson. And at that time I thought, well, why would I need two guitars? So I sold the first one for about $20.
Oh my God.
I thought I just made a profit and I have a new guitar.
And do you remember some of the first things you learned to play? Some of the first songs you learned?
The first thing I learned was a melody, I think it's called Forest Flower, that was on a jazz album that my dad had.
Hmm.
And he taught me the melody, and that was it. And I also got lessons right away. So I was learning Yankee Doodle and some very basic folk songs from a teacher.
All the usual suspects.
Yes.
You said that you've been in a few bands and that you've kind of done the rounds. What was the first show that you ever played? What was that like? Was it rough or did it go well?
It was terrifying. I didn't have a live gig until after I graduated guitar school, which was pretty rare. I think I'm one of the only ones in the school that had never played live before. And it was a jazz gig, reading out of the real book, Jazz Standards. And I had worked with a guy named Brian Pardo, who's an amazing jazz player. Months we would get together and go through jazz standards. And all of a sudden I'm at a gig with an audience, and I realized how lame it was to have your eyes glued to a book while you have people watching you. So then I started trying to memorize stuff and take it to the next level. And I
Mm.
also remember my cable was too short, and it was my amp was always on the verge of tipping over that whole show, and my father was there biting his teeth or his nails.
Yeah, with things like that as well, I imagine going from those kind of smaller shows where you're kind of tethered to the amp, like you said, with a too short lead, in comparison to the tours that you later went on such massive scales. That
Yeah.
must have been a huge jump for you and an adjustment.
Yeah. It was a huge jump for most of us, for the dancers for sure. And for me and the other guitar player on the first Michael Jackson tour, John Clark, we had never done anything like that before. Thankfully, we were in the minority because Ricky Lawson on drums had played with Whitney Houston, Lionel Richie, and God, you name it. He was one of the first calls in the world. And Don Boyette, the same. Greg Fillinganes, I think he was playing with Stevie Wonder when he was 18. So we were very lucky that they were all very kind people, and they knew we were rookies, and they did not give us a load of shit for it. It was more like taking us under their wing and helping us along.
So lovely to hear, because usually, with the new kid kind of at the table, people can be a bit clicky about things.
Sure. Oh, I've heard nightmare stories
Mhm.
from bands that, geez, if I was treated like some of the other people that were novices, quote unquote, in uh, big name bands, I don't know if I would have survived, honestly.
Yeah, you hear some horror stories, so it's nice to hear that everyone on board was so lovely.
Yeah, we kept in touch. Well, the ones that are still alive, we still keep in touch.
Oh, that's gorgeous. You guys still talk?
Yeah, in fact, I just saw Greg Fillinganes. He's playing with Toto.
Yeah.
So I just saw him a couple months ago in Portland, where I live. So it's always great to reconnect because, I mean, I don't think we realized what a giant part of history it was at the time that we were playing with Michael, but it was the biggest tour on the planet. Just crazy. I mean, he would sell out 50, 60, 80,000 seaters every night. Um, you know, in fact, I remember I met up with George Lynch from Dokken when I was in Japan, and he said, "Boy, it must be incredible to be in such a situation, such a performance situation that's so high level." And I remember that so well because I thought, well, you're in a giant band. What's the difference? But honestly, yeah, Michael was on a whole other level.
A whole other world,
Yes.
especially for the time. Like the tours, I know that they progressed as they went on. There was Bad and then Dangerous kind of outdid that in terms of scale and staging as well. And then the History Tour outdid that again. For you, like going through the years of tours, was it hard trying to up your game or even trying to simple things like trying to keep up with technology in terms of rigging, in terms of your layout or your gear?
I think any guitar player, especially, and most other instruments, it's just an evolving process. As things are invented, you just naturally migrate towards the new stuff. And God, in the last 20 years, it's gotten really involved. Where, in the olden days, you could buy a pedal and plug it in and go and mess with a few parameters and you're good to go. But now, when you buy something like a processor like the Quad Cortex or Line 6 Helix, you, you, you got a good 2 months
Yeah.
to really get to know it because there's so much in it and it just takes so many hours of listening and tweaking and thinking that you have it and then coming back the next day and go, no, it's not quite there and spending another 6 hours and your ears burn out and it's a process. So, even though these companies say, a lot of them will say you keep it for 30 days and you can return it. Well, it takes 90 to really get to know it. So
Yeah.
you're not going to return it.
No, yeah, I know. We got a new interface recently and it was like a fucking science project in my house. It was the three of us trying to figure out like you said, simple things like tweaking it, but even down to things aren't necessarily just plug and play anymore. Now there's downloadable packs and there's add-ons and you need the app. It seems so complicated.
It really is, and I totally have respect for people that still want to go with an amp with four parameters. But I'm luckily I was with Digitech for many years, and so I was kind of forced into the new product because I would be demoing it. So I got used to programming in the late 80s and 90s, and granted, it's on a whole other level now. Um, but I dig it. I've got the most inspiring sound I've had because nowadays every band I'm in is on in-ear monitors.
Mm.
Um, and most, if I'm lucky, most of the bands also will send all the tracks to an iPad. So I can mix it myself and get the best sound I've ever had. And now I'm stereo, so I can really hear the spread of the stereo spectrum and have my guitar exactly where I want it for the best inspiration. So things are getting better. It takes time to get used to it all, and a lot of money spent in experimentation. But
Oh yeah.
when that's your gig, that's what you do.
I want to touch on what you said about monitors because we play and I like learned to in-ear monitors. But back on the Bad, the Dangerous, the History tour, you guys weren't using in-ears, were you?
We were a very, very early crappy in-ear monitors. I don't think Michael used them at all until uh, that last film that he did for the tour that didn't happen.
Mm.
But we had them, but I would pull them out when I would go out front to do a solo. It just didn't feel right to me to have them in. So the side fills were plenty loud, and that's where the inspiration came from. But when I was back at my station, we had both of them actually. We had monitors coming at us, and we had in-ear monitors. So that's kind of the best of both worlds because you kind of get the ambience of the monitor hitting you, so it's not as isolating. But monitors have come a long, long way.
Yeah, 'cause we were watching myself and my brother, he's a massive fan as well of yours, and I think it was the Wembley show. And he kept pointing out that it looked like there was monitors or there was wedges behind where you guys would have been, so facing out at you.
That doesn't make sense.
That's what we thought, because he kept going, "What are the monitors doing?" And I was like, "Yeah, I don't know." And that's why I was wondering, was it in-ears versus monitors?
Yeah, our monitors were in front of us. Often the drummer will have a monitor on the side, but what was behind us was probably lighting or some other stage fuckery.
With touring, then, did you find it surprising to get called back tour after tour?
I did. I didn't expect that. I didn't know how that worked. I kind of figured that they would go for fresh faces every time. Um, and I got called back for the Dangerous Tour and the History Tour, and then I assumed I would be called for This Is It.
Mm.
I remember I had flown to England and I was on a long layover to get somewhere else, and I was having a coffee at a coffee shop, and the TV was on, and that's when I saw Michael announced This Is It dates. And I thought, I'm in the money again. And then he went for Orianthe, a woman half my age, which makes sense. I was really happy for her. Sadly, it never happened because he passed.
I remember the hype around that tour very kind of vaguely. I would have been 12, 11, 12-ish. But one thing that I really wanted to say is I worked in a very small clothing shop in my city, right? Very
Mm,
small, family run. And one of the girls that worked with me, we got talking about Michael one day because we used to have a holographic handbag for sale in the window of him.
yeah,
And I remember her telling me, like, dude, like my mom, she went to the Bad Tour back when they played Cork. And I
yeah.
was like, no way do you know someone that actually went and saw that live? And she was like, yeah, I swear to God. For you being a part of that and getting to, especially around Europe, you guys toured a lot around Europe.
Yeah, we were out, oh gosh, at least 3 months, maybe 4 months in Europe.
So what was that like? On hopping on and off planes, in and out of venues, especially like the culture shock being over here.
I tell people it was a paid vacation for me. I was having the time of my life. I was a fan of his music before I got in the band. And I remember Cork very well uh, because we had plenty of time to really see the cities we were in, which is very usual for touring bands. But Michael was in such a good space financially, he wasn't forced to play every day. So we
Yeah.
only played 2 or 3 days a week, and we had plenty of time to really see things. And I remember Cork so well because I walked around the city a lot, and every shop was about Michael. I mean, you would go into a diner and they changed the menu to Dirty Diana omelets, and Billie Jean pancakes. In fact, I bought a few things. I still have a clock that I got that has Michael on the face of it, and a few other things. I mean, the whole town was all about Michael for weeks before and probably weeks after. Yeah, I don't know why we only did one city in Ireland that time, but it was really fun. And I have in my heritage the last name of McCarthy. And I remember shooting all the McCarthy shops that were everywhere. And the morning after the show, I was shooting some more. Back in those days, it was a big honking video camera long before smartphones. And the police stopped me. I think they thought I was a spy or something. And it was the funniest thing because they were plain clothes, and they go, "We're the police," and blah blah blah. And I go, "You don't look like police." And I kept walking, and they stopped again, and the guy pulled out his badge. And as soon as I kneeled down to talk to the guy, somebody else kneeled down and asked for an autograph. And I go, the timing
Oh my
could
God.
not have been better because you don't usually want an autograph from a spy.
But with the shows then and with on stage shit, especially with things like costumes and costuming, yeah, it was iconic, but your outfits were iconic as well in their own right. How much of that was what you brought versus what like a costume designer or a kind of arranger would put together?
Oh, thankfully they didn't consult me at all because I was clueless. Michael had a concept for what I should look like, which is he wanted me outrageous. He wanted everybody to not look like they just walked in off the street, like the grunge era. Um, he hired an artist to draw up 3 different costumes and a look for every performer on stage. And then he got costumers to come and make measurements and then go to work making those costumes from the paintings. And then the whole hair and makeup crew was a whole other level. One by one, we would be plucked out of rehearsal and transformed and sent back. And so Michael wanted me to stand out, and so that's why the giant blonde hair happened. That I had nothing to do with that other than loaning my scalp.
With onstage antics then and kind of gimmicky stuff, one thing that always it's always brought up is the simmering.
Is the what?
Oh, the simmering, the MJ simmer, that he'd come on stage and just stand
Ah,
soaking in the simmering.
oh yeah,
For
yeah.
the
He had a lot of
band,
power.
he did.
Oh, I mean, he didn't have to do anything to make people lose their minds.
People would just pass out at him taking off his fucking glasses.
Yeah, and I think there was a bit of a scam with some of them. I mean, granted, people would be there hours and hours and hours before the show, baking in the sun, and a lot of people honestly passed out. But I think some of them passed out hoping to get backstage.
But with you guys as a unit and as a band, as a group, for things like that where there might be an extended intro to something, or he might just go off and decide he wants to ad-lib something. How, like, down to the second and planned were you guys in terms of stuff like that? Like with the simmering, if he's just standing there at the beginning of a show, are you guys on a timer? Do you know exactly at 1 minute 30 we're starting?
No, in the beginning, he would give us a clue or give somebody a clue for a count off. I think he would just feel the audience and know when it was time. Wait until the max of noise, and then peel off the glasses and take it from there. I mean, we rehearsed a hell of a lot. We rehearsed for 2 months straight as a band in one room, singers in one room, and dancers in another. And then we spent a whole other month with Michael and the special effects and lighting and bombs and smoke. So we were very, very well rehearsed. There were spots to improvise, but other than that, we would do the same order. We had to do the same order every night because of costume changes and pyro cues. You just couldn't call a tune.
Yeah.
We all knew what was going to happen next.
It always fascinates me because I'm a drummer, and counting in and keeping everyone together is kind of my job. And the stress I feel sometimes watching, like it could anything from Live in Budapest to the Wembley show, that I'm just like, it seems so effortless and it seems so improv, and I'm like, I know that's not. I know the planning in that shit must have been intense.
Absolutely, yeah, yeah. He knew what he was doing. I mean, gosh, he'd been performing since he was 5 years old,
Mm.
and he knew the power of rehearsal. I think with any other band, like when I was with Jeff Beck after, I always felt like, God, if we had one more week of rehearsal, especially for me, because I was triggering guitar synthesizer and guitars, and I had so many pedals, and
Yeah.
Jeff would be changing songs, changing order up until the last minute, and I was like, "Oh God, I hope I don't fuck this up." But everything was second nature with Michael because of that rehearsal.
I think you always feel too, just a bit more time. I need just a bit more time, be it an album, be it studio or tour, you know?
Yeah, I think with Michael, we were raring to go. I mean, we were doing the entire show at least once or twice a day by the time we left. So we just wanted an audience at that point.
You probably knew it like the back of your hand at that stage. Like,
Yes, absolutely, yes.
I know it's a difficult question and it's not fair to ask, but I have to. Do you have a standout moment or show or tour even?
Yeah, the Bad Tour. I think anybody was on that were on other tours would say the Bad Tour was the best because he was so on fire, and this was his proving ground. The first tour he did without his brothers, and he was on his own, and there was a lot of pressure to prove himself. He had the success of the Thriller album at that point, and plus the follow-up album, so he had a lot to prove, and we were, one machine coming at the audience. Everybody was very united. And then by the time the Dangerous tour came along, we'd already done it. I mean, not to say
Yeah.
that it wasn't fun, but it wasn't that initial high. Like, oh my God, we're in the biggest tour in the world. We're going around the world for a year and a half, and there's cameras in our face everywhere. And he brought his monkey to Japan. And just every day there was something new hitting us that was just a joy.
Mm. Yeah, I can't imagine that the eccentricness would ever become second nature of like that, just casually seeing bubbles in Japan.
Yeah, I mean, this is a clue to the power he had too, because most people cannot bring a monkey to Japan. Um, and I read, I don't know if it's true because, you know, a lot of stuff out there that isn't true, but I
Mm.
read that they said, no, you can't bring the monkey. And he said, well, the tour's not coming then. And all of a sudden they go, oh, okay, bring the monkey. And there was an ice cream chain called Hobson's that had stuffed monkeys. It was everything he did was all put into promotion. And people were just crazy for him all around the world. But we started in Japan, so that was my first experience playing for that many people.
And how'd you find it? For you personally, was it daunting, or were you, like you said, like, no, I'm ready, let me out there?
I really remember how I felt during the day of the first show. And there was anxiety because I'd had plenty of experience where, and I think every player's had this experience where you're rehearsing at home and you're just killing it along with the tracks. And then at rehearsal, that's a whole other level with variables. And sometimes you're just killing it at rehearsal and then you get to the show and there's so much has to depend on how you're hearing things. And if something's off and you're not hearing cues, it can screw you up. Um, and I've had plenty of experiences where you get to the show and it's just kind of a letdown because it wasn't as on fire as the rehearsal. So I had a lot of anxiety because of that. But once they counted the first song, it was just like at rehearsal, except we had an audience. And it was very, we were pumped with adrenaline, but there was nothing like, oh God, I hope I remember what the next song is or what the next chord is. None of that. It was so second nature because of the amount of rehearsal that we had. We were just good to go. And, we all worked as a team as opposed to individuals that we all knew our specific parts. I wonder how it's going to sound when we're together. It
Right.
was,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, when that kind of muscle memory kicks in, that can be a godsend.
It's very important, and it is a luxury for a lot of bands because, boy, I can't imagine the money that was spent just on the rehearsal space. 3 different rooms for band singers, dancers for a whole month, and then a giant sound stage, and then paying. There was 100 people in the entourage, so that's a lot of people to pay. A lot of people flew in to LA that lived in other parts of the states or other world, so it's a lot of hotels. And then I remember asking. I can't imagine I would have asked them this, but one night after a show, we were hanging out in a club, and I was speaking with Michael's manager Frank DeLeo, and he told me that it cost $500,000 a week to keep the tour on the road. That's just expenses. Bus drivers, caterers, carpenters, the band, makeup, security. So, and I read that tour he profited something like $95 million. So it was like a small city moving from place to place.
And you kind of forget, like as an outsider looking in, you do forget that there's so many moving parts to a tour like that.
Yeah, yeah. I wouldn't want to have to run it.
But like you mentioned about rehearsals and like the rehearsal stages and stuff. How did that differ for the really big productions as opposed to something like the Super Bowl?
The Super Bowl was completely different, and it was really exciting because it was different. We had to rehearse to get the medleys together because it was not the song forms that we were used to. Um, and you knew it was a one-time thing. It's the only time I ever felt like Michael was nervous. He was under a lot of pressure.
Mm.
It was live. There's no reshoots. There's no fixing at anything. And one of the most comical things is at one point, Michael and I were together on one of the corners of the stage, and whoever was controlling the stage fog had to kind of gauge for wind because it was outdoors, and he overdid it. And there's a few seconds where you barely see either of us because we're just engulfed in fog. So, I mean, that's live. Things happen live that you can't fix. You just do the best you can.
I can't imagine the stress. especially when you're walking into like a venue like that that's already prepped for the day ahead, trying to fit yourself in and trying to even just get to the point of being ready to go live for an event like that. I'd be shitting bricks. Like,
Well, yeah, I think he kind of was. And it took a lot of convincing to convince him to do it. And I think part of his resistance was he was following years and years and years of the halftime being marching bands. So
yeah.
all of a sudden, it's night and day different. And I think he knew it wasn't his crowd, it was a football crowd. And so when he went out there and he's just staring for as long as he felt like staring, it was too long in my view.
Mm.
Um, and I think it's because of course there was a lot of Michael Jackson fans in the stadium, but most of them were there for football. So, I think he was waiting to feel what he normally felt in a stadium of 100% Michael Jackson fans, where typically in his audiences you would see half a dozen lookalikes in the front row
Yeah.
that knew all the well, everybody knew all the words, but
They knew the dances and the hand movements. Yeah.
yes, and it was just a different animal for him. Of course, it worked out, and every year people send me links to that video like I've never seen it before.
And can you watch things like that back then? Performances you've been a part of, like that, like the Budapest or the Wembley show or the Super Bowl. Are you the kind of performer who you can watch it back and dissect it, or are you like, ah, I don't need to see that again. I'm good.
I don't watch it, and I really should because I'm with four different Jackson tributes right now, and I could probably learn from it. But once the tours are over, I'm moving forward to what's next, what's next. And after those Jackson shows, I went off to play with Jeff Beck and to do my own albums, and I keep meaning to look back at it. And thanks for the reminder. It's not like anything's wrong with it. In fact, gosh, this is years ago now, but when they released the Wembley thing, Wembley 25 or something, Sony invited us all as a band to watch it before it was released. And everybody else lives in LA, but I had moved to Portland, Oregon, and I flew down. And we were all blown away because I don't think any of us had watched those videos for years. And just to see Michael's energy, my God, it was just amazing. You forget. We forgot how great he was. I mean, all the body movements, every little drum hit, so much more than your average performer would ever put out in energy. And in fact, I don't think he did this during the Bad Tour, but Dangerous in History, between when he would have a break, he had an oxygen tank that would help him. He would breathe oxygen to help his energy because he was putting out so much energy in dance, and then singing on top of it is next to impossible, but he was able to do it.
It must have been strange for you guys as well, like that, looking back, especially like you said about the bad re-release, because it must be strange for you being on the stage, seeing one side of each other and of the venue and of Michael, as opposed to seeing it from the fans' point of view.
Yeah, absolutely. That's boy, that triggers a memory I read in a book about John Coltrane, his autobiography, that his one regret in music is that he couldn't ever feel what the audience felt. You can't ever hear what the audience is hearing. But that's just how it is, you know.
Mm.
But thankfully, with video, you can get an example of what it sounded like, at least for that night.
Doesn't capture the energy that would have been in the room.
No, no. Well, Michael loved to have a lot of footage of the audience going crazy, so you did get an idea of people just losing their minds and crying. And I mean, I get that in these tribute shows. There was a woman the other night that was in the front row, and God, I wish I could have videotaped it. And I recently got those Ray-Ban Meta glasses that you can put them on and just click and it'll record video to
Do
whatever
they
you're looking
work?
at.
Do they actually work?
Yeah, they're really good. You can only do like 3 minutes at a time, but you can do unlimited amount of still shots. But this girl, as soon as she saw the monsters come out for Thriller, her eyes were like this, and her mouth was open for the rest of the show. And to see young people experience a good percent of what it felt like to see a Michael Jackson show It's really great, and that's why I keep doing it. It's just fun, and you see people so happy and smiling and dancing in their seats. Yeah, it brings a lot of joy. So what a great career.
Yeah, and the I think a huge part of it is just the energy of hearing it live because I know, oh God, this would have been 2011, I think. I remember I went to see, I think it was Thriller Live, it came to Dublin. And
Mm,
it was just the feeling of like being in a venue and hearing the songs live through like how it's supposed to be listened to through these huge fucking speakers where you can't even hear yourself
yeah,
sing.
yeah, that has a lot to do with it. The live sound
Yeah.
is huge. You can't ever get that at home. You can't get that from a DVD. Just the sound of live drums is something worth paying for to go to a live show.
But before we move on from some of the Michael stuff, do you have a favorite memory with him?
Yeah, I think my all-time favorite, when I was on the Bad tour, Sheryl Crow was the only other female in the band, and Michael shut down the Tokyo Disneyland so we could hang out as performers and crew on our own without being bothered by fans. And we had at least 2 hours on our own, and we saw Captain EO. And at one point, Cheryl and I were in a gift shop, and I saw this Daisy Duck toothbrush holder. And you push down the head, and the eyes go back and forth for as long as you're supposed to brush your teeth. And I thought, this is so fun. This is what I spend my money on, this stupid crap. And I kept pushing the head down and watching the eyes go back and forth, and we were both fascinated by it. And all of a sudden, I didn't know Michael was anywhere near us. And he came up behind me, tapped me on the shoulder, and said, I like how you're playing the Beat It solo. And that's the first time I felt valid. I mean, they never told me that I was hired. They just said, Michael's interested, come down, play with the band, and see how it goes. And day after day, they just didn't send me home. Next thing I know, I have a passport and a ticket to Tokyo, and I go, well, it seems like things are going well. Then getting that validity, I just relaxed, like, okay, this is real. At this point, they're not going to send me home. It worked out for 10 years.
That has to be the most Michael Jackson story I could possibly think of in Disneyland, where you're there with
Yes.
a Daisy Duck thing, and he's just like, "Oh yeah, I like the solo, by the way," and you're just like, "I guess I got the job."
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I was launched. I mean, we all were people that hadn't done big shows like that before.
Mm,
From, playing in, like I said, 5 bands, playing on Sunset Strip, and maybe playing once or twice a month, hoping that people didn't hate you, with
yeah.
generally playing with 2 other bands per night because they wanted to max the audience with people's friends. To go from that to the biggest tour in the world, to go from teaching 6 and 7 days a week and maybe making $500 a week at that time, working 7 days a week, to making as much as my doctor father was making. So, and I was able to buy a house. I mean, most guitar players that don't sing could never afford to buy a house, especially these days. It's next to impossible. But there were so many blessings that just keep coming. I didn't see this coming. I first started playing with him in 1987 to 97, the History Tour, and then went about doing my own records and Feast and Famine, doing a lot of clinic tours and playing with a lot of different situations, putting out records. And then all these years later, now they're releasing in April, they're going to release a biopic about him that'll be huge. They're putting millions into it. And there's still a lot of desire to have these tribute bands around the world. And I'll say, boy, 3 of them are Brazilian singers. It's the wildest thing, and they're all great. They all have great shows. And to put a Michael Jackson tribute together, to do a good one, is not easy. It's very expensive. You have to have the costumes. You have to be able to do the Smooth Criminal lean.
Yeah.
And you just can't not do any of those specialty things. So it's very expensive. And the one I'm playing in next, based in Milan, it has an orchestra, which I've never played with an orchestra before. So, that's on a whole other level that Michael never had. And it's just so fun to be on a bus with 20 people that are all having a good time. Every single band, everybody gets along great, which is a fluke, really.
It's a rarity.
I mean, you toss people together from around the world. You got Brazilians and Italians, and one of the bands is based in Argentina. Uh, and I just bought a house in Mexico last summer, so I'm really trying to get my Spanish up. So it's a real blessing to be around Spanish speakers. I'm just having a really good time in my life right now.
I'm so glad to hear that, especially in the middle of such a busy time for you, because I know when work gets kind of loaded on, shit can get stressful very fast.
Well, the travel. I think
Yeah.
any musician that's done it for a long time will say that part is ass. You got these late night shows. Sometimes you don't get in. Well, we just did a show in Zaragoza, Spain. I didn't get to sleep till 1:30, and we were on a van at 5 o'clock in the morning to get to the Madrid airport. So when you have enough days with not enough sleep,
Mm.
and the food can be kind of iffy in quality, your immunity gets down. And I was so happy. I've been out. It'll be about 4 months that I'm out this time. In 2 months, I was healthy, and I thought, man, I wonder if this is gonna be the first tour I can get through the whole tour without getting sick. And poof.
Jinxed yourself.
Yeah, right.
You spoke too soon.
And I will say it's the first time, I think, since COVID that I got on a plane without wearing a mask. I flew from Mexico to Europe, and boom, started sneezing, and then on and on and on.
Fuck.
Oh well, let that be a lesson to me.
I'm still not at that stage yet. I still mask up when I'm traveling. The
Yeah.
anxiety is just too much. I can't hack it. I'm like, I'd rather just wear it, you know?
Yeah, well, I won't make that mistake again.
Yeah. But you mentioned a minute ago your albums and your kind of studio work, and I wanted to touch on that because like I said, I'm in a band, made a band with my brother and our bass player Brandon. And we're currently in the middle of working through our first album. And it's my first experience in the studio. So I've never they've done EPs. I only joined end of last year, started this year. So I'm new to the studio. The way that we're doing things, it's all go in, do drums, and then we track bass, guitar, and vocals at home.
Hmm.
So for you, the studio, are you kind of interface plug and play, or are you mic up the amp, old school style?
No, I jumped into new school, and I'll tell you what did it. It was actually there's a tribute that I work with that's based in Sao Paulo, Brazil,
Mm.
and the guitar player Leandre Gomez is just a phenomenal player. And I was doing the 412 Marshall and using the blue guitar amp one, and he was using a fractal system, all in one, and he sounded so good. I go, oh, okay, I got to do it. I got to jump into this, and so I bought one when I got home, and it was after spending about a month of programming it. I thought this is absolutely impossible. So, so then I got a Line 6 Helix, which is a lot easier to program. But I've been with modelers ever since. And I can't wait till the Helix Stadium comes out. It should come out later this month. The only reason I took a quad Cortex on the road and for the last year, only because it'll fit in my carry-on. And I don't trust airlines
Me
to
neither.
lose my sound system. So everything has to be in my carry-on.
Yeah.
So now, finally, Line 6 has made a dream come true with the smaller of their two stadium models. I'll be able to put in carry-on. And I mean, that it's, like I said earlier, it's the best sound I've ever had in ears, and the easiest to control. So I'm in a very good space with that.
I think it's interesting as well that you run an awful lot yourself. That you run an awful lot like through the iPad, was it? Is that what you said? iPad is what you use?
Yeah, I take an iPad mini that weighs nothing. You can put it in your purse.
Yeah.
Um, Not every situation allows it. Actually, last time I was in Brazil, they didn't have the capacity to have a router and
Mm.
send the signals to me, which I hate because I get so used to having 100% control. I get
Yeah.
everything nailed to exactly where I want it. And I'll add another thing. People listening that are on in-ear monitors might be very interested in this. For years, I've been using a system by a company called Sensophonics, in-ear monitors. And your monitors run into a box. There's microphones, several drivers plus microphones in the ear. And it runs to a box where you can control how much outside sound you get. And a lot of times I want zero. I want complete isolation. And then that box runs into the wireless pack that the monitor guy gives you. Now, the beauty of it is if I'm in a situation where I'm not 100% happy with the sound that I'm given, when I'm not able to control it myself, I can open up the microphones so I can hear the side fills and cues that I might be missing because of a less than great mix that are on my in-ears. I can at least hear what the house is hearing and what the side fills are giving me. And then sometimes I'll open up the microphones just for ambience. It just depends on every situation is different. And they call it 3D ambient in-ear monitors. And the 3D is, when I have a great mix and everything is really controlled, sometimes I'll open up and it just gives you a whole different level of connection with the audience. So I think it's the best that you can get right now. And they have, boy, when I first bought them, which might have been 10 years ago, they were $2,500, which is extremely expensive. And then my puppy ate them twice.
Ooh.
That was painful. It was a very expensive dog. Now recently, I had molded ones back in the day, and then I just gave up on them and got the one size fits all, which you can get now for $800, which is really cheap in comparison. But I recently got the molds again that are silicone and very, very comfortable. So I highly recommend it to anybody that spends a lot of time on in-ear monitors.
Yeah, we use in-ears, but we use just regular, they're kind of like earbud in-ears. So
Yeah.
it's like the one size fits all, but the cheapest version you could probably go with. And it's total isolation. When I'm playing, it's usually just click. I don't like anything. I don't like anything bouncing back. It throws me.
Okay.
So it's interesting that you like the idea of what was it you call it? The 3D spatial?
It's if you go, you can get them on Amazon. 3DME is the official thing, but they also call it 3D ambient.
Ambient.
There's only one model that Sensophonics has that has the ambient thing that connects to the box with the microphones embedded in the in-ears.
It's a great idea. I know because the two lads they're all constantly pulling out in-ears to try and hear what's going on in the room, be it rehearsals or studio or whatever. It's the idea that you can kind of mesh that. I didn't know that was even a
Yeah,
thing.
and there's another bonus too, that when you're in rehearsals, normally if somebody wants to talk to somebody else, you pull
Yeah.
one out. You don't have to do that. You just turn on the microphone. You can get cheap ones, and there's a KZ, I think, is a brand out of China that those are the best ones as far as the cable. They have the best design with the cable. But you have to figure that your inspiration on stage is everything. When you're not hearing things right, you play differently, and it can be a really miserable experience. So the more control you get, the better. And you think of all the money you put into drum kits, all the money guitar players put into guitars and modelers, to get a $50 in-ear
Yeah.
to grade that whole experience, it's really worthwhile to get a really good set.
Yeah, I think we're kind of in the market looking for some because we did buy just your kind of basic run-of-the-mill one from I think it was Amazon, just to get us through rehearsals and to get us through kind of what we're doing at the moment. And we were
Yeah.
looking for a proper pair because like it drives us nuts, even down to the fit of it in your ears, that they're constantly falling out, the wires getting
Yes.
stuck.
Yeah. Well, if you can get, well, now there's a whole new technology of getting ear molds, because that's why I started out with the molds, and you always had to go to an audiologist, and then you had to take the molds and then send them to the company and then get them back, and it was all time consuming, and a lot of times I just didn't have the time between tours to make all that happen. Now you can go to an audiologist and get a scan, and get a digital scan, send that to the company, and you're good to go. And that'll last you a few years because ears do change over time. But the technology is phenomenal now.
That's cool. You don't even need to get the weird stuff like in your ears anymore.
Nope. I mean, not every audiologist will allow it, or
Yeah.
they haven't come up to that level of tech yet. But just call around.
That's nuts. I imagine as well, like you said, you invest in a good piece, you're gonna have it for a while.
Unless your dog eats it.
Stop, don't speak that into existence. I have a dog. I have a
Yeah,
dog.
just keep them up high because dogs love earwax. I found that out the hard way.
Mine loves drumsticks. I found that out the hard way.
Oh, yeah, that's expensive too.
But with we're talking about equipment and stuff. Do you have a piece that you've kept by you throughout the years that mightn't necessarily be considered like a good piece, but to you it is irreplaceable?
Yeah, the whammy pedal. That came out in the late '90s, I think, and I was one of the first adopters. And what I use it for mostly is to emulate slide guitar because I suck at slide guitar, and I set it so I take notes or chords down a whole step with my foot. So you can kind of emulate that slide. Um, and they went through, gosh, a lot of different versions, and it's been degraded over time. You would think it would be better, but now I use one that's within modelers, and they're not great. It's not bad doing a whole step, but to do an octave, it's not as smooth as the original whammies, where every increment that your foot went, you would get the same percentage of change. Now, sadly, and I hate this, and that's why I keep one of the originals at home to record. But your foot will move and there's nothing, and then it
It
then it makes
jumps in.
sound. So it's not smooth
Yeah.
anymore. I wish it would be fixed, but you would think in almost 2026 that some company would have it really down, but sadly, it's not.
No. I know the stress and the pressure of pedals. My brother goes through pedals like there's no tomorrow. He'd go, "This is the one. I've done my research. Just you wait." The pedal
Yeah.
comes and he goes, "So I'm looking for a new pedal." And you're there like, "You just fucking got one."
Yeah. Well, I'm sure I'm like millions of people that we would look in Guitar Player magazine and see an ad for something and go, "That sounds like exactly what I need." And so I'm
Yeah.
just gonna get it sight unseen, and it's all bullshit. It's all sales. You really nowadays you can look at YouTube videos and see demos of people using it, and
Yeah.
plenty of people that are they have to keep up with their content, so they'll say this is shit and here's why. So at least you can see people that give the good and the bad
Yeah.
before you actually put some money down. But there's anything you get, there's going to be compromise. Anything I get, I always think, I love this so much, but only if the whammy pedal was smoother, then it would be great. But I mean, Jesus, compared to 1987 when I got a full rack full of gear, it was before multi-effects, so I had one whole rack that was reverb, another whole rack that was only chorus, another two-rack space that was delay and MIDI switching, and it took three guys to lift the damn thing. And now I can't wait till everything is in here. you know
And it will happen.
Now this is my fantasy. Everything that's going to be in the Helix Stadium will be in your phone, and your phone can project a virtual pedal board on the stage.
Like a little
So
hologram.
yeah, it's going to happen the day I retire. I know it will. So you don't have to carry anything.
Yeah, 'cause the weight of those fucking things and then the wires and the cables and the extension cords. Oh my God. I only kind of know briefly because like I said, my brother, he's the guitar player in our band and he's got a little thing. It's like a little stand thing. And
Yeah.
all of the pedals are like stuck onto it. And all I know is I know how to plug them in and I know don't touch them, don't move them,
Yeah.
don't touch the dials.
Yeah, I got over the pedal board thing a long time ago. Um, just you got to figure if you got 10 pedals and they're all connected, that's 10 different things that can go wrong.
Yeah.
So I have an all-in-one unit right now on this tour. I have the Quad Cortex, and a couple expression pedals. And then I also bring, this is a really great thing because it's so lightweight, 2.7 pounds is the Helix, HX Stomp by Line 6. And so I have all my backup sounds in there. If the quad cortex explodes and goes to hell, boom, I got a backup that's less than 3 pounds.
Yeah, he uses, I think he's four pedals. The
Yeah.
chorus, reverb, something and something, I think.
Delay and maybe compressor, depending on the kind of music.
Probably he's a big fan. He's a big fan of delay and reverb. But yeah, like I was saying about the studio and stuff, like we split between home and recording in the actual studio. And for you, you've done a lot of things like features and working with people recently. How do you source people? How do you say yes? How do you physically do it in terms of recording? Are you record at home, record on the road, record in the studio?
I finally joined the modern tech, and I can record on the road now. And so I've done quite a bit, and it's great. Like last June or 2 years ago, I was in Brazil for a month, and we did a bunch of shows. But I also had a lot of days off in the hotel room, and so I was able to do sessions for people. And I got an interface called Axe.io. God, I can't remember the company, but as far as I know, there's only one interface, and it's very, very lightweight, easy to pack, and you can plug expression pedals into the back of it. And that's why I got that one, because I like to use the whammy pedal and wah. Yeah, I just set up and go. Use headphones, and I can record anywhere. And that's, I mean, these days I'm spending at least 8 months on the road. So when somebody wants a session, I can't say, well, I won't be back till Christmas. They usually want it now. In fact, I'm supposed to be doing a car commercial. I'm waiting for the music to appear in the next couple of days. So yeah, it's fun. I love doing it, and I get a really wide variety of sessions. Anything from really ambient new age to hardcore metal. And I love it because it really forces me into a different world and a different mindset instead of getting the same kind of music all the time.
Mm.
So I really enjoy it for the most part. In fact, the last two sessions I did were for Bootsy Collins, and one of them I was trading solos with Buckethead. I met him when he was 16, and all these years later, it's come back around, so we've recorded together. There's a song out called Troops that's Bootsy's tune with Billy Sheehan on bass. And God, they changed the name of the other song that's with Buckethead, but that should be out, I think, in April next year.
Yeah, you were talking about the wide variety. You did a song. Oh my God, was their name Emilio? Emilio something or other? And it was kind of a almost club atmospheric style of song. Love the effect of it. And I've noticed that with you, that the variety of what you feature on, of what you work with, it's so varied.
Yeah, that reminds me, I don't know if this was it, but God, years ago, I worked on techno sessions out of, there was a town outside of Milan, and I did a bunch, and they were kind of tough because it had to be between, God, I want to say 158 beats per minute to 162. It couldn't vary. And it was an Italian producer, but it was only sold in Japan. So it was kind of crazy. There was a couple that he wanted fills between vocal lines, and you'd have a split second to do a fill. It's almost comical. The more variety of stuff that you can do, I think it just makes you a better musician overall.
Both as like obviously you're a lover of music, but as a musician yourself, like when it comes to picking tracks or collaborating with artists, I imagine it would be easier now more than ever, but also more difficult because there's so much you could possibly do, and the options are endless.
Well, at this point, I'm not putting my energy into trying to forward my career and my recordings. It's just whatever work comes in through email is what I do. That's how I got all these Michael Jackson tribute tours, and that's how I get all my sessions. At this point, the people that know me are people that have listened to my solo records contact me and say, do you want to play on this? And sometimes I turn them down. It's very, very rare. But if it's something I think that I can't do much for this track, but almost always I'll give it a go and see what happens.
As a musician, I know myself, listening to music can be hard sometimes because you're so hell bent on, like, what time is this in? What BPM is this? What is that effect they're using on the? Do you find that you gravitate towards more recent music, more recent releases in terms of style, or do you prefer going back and listening to the older style of stuff?
As far as listening, boy, that's a really hard thing. It's well, you know what? I've discovered a lot of people through TikTok and Instagram, and I might not know their names, but I recognize them, and a lot of times I'll share it just because I go, man, this guy's phenomenal. I just shared that I don't know his name. There's a phenomenal bass player that I saw the other day that I just go, more people need to hear about this person, so I'll share it. And there was a guitar player also that I shared in the last week that did, I think, PYT, Michael Jackson's song. And what he was doing on guitar underneath it was fucking mind-blowing. I mean, it's just so unusual. And that's what grabs my ear, is stuff that is unusual, that's groundbreaking, or somebody's chops that are just, not the chops, but what, their note choices and facility together are exciting. And it's almost like, my brain has been rewired just like every other person that's watching social media and TikTok and that kind of stuff. Where I tell you, it's sad, but I got an ad for some player that I enjoyed because there's a pre-sale of his record. I'm probably not going to get the record. I like these 30-second clips. How awful is that? This was in the movie Back to the Future, where I specifically remember the kids in the car, and every song was 20 seconds or 30 seconds.
Yeah.
And they go, yeah, that's the new hit, 20 seconds. Like, take us to the chorus, don't bore us. Yep. And then there's another 20, 30-second song. God, what's happening to our brains? It's awful.
YouTube is more my thing. I do kind of tend to lean more towards longer format content. But, like, it's the TikTokification. It's, a song by the, like you said, the 10-second fucking sound that went viral, or an artist because of one song that went viral, or that became a challenge, or became part of it, whatever. And I wanted to ask you about that as well, the change in the music industry. And with how people take in music, even down to things like the shuffle button on Spotify for albums, that the integrity of an album has completely changed now. From your intro to like the progression throughout the album, it's not as important as it used to be.
Yeah.
So, what are your thoughts on how things have changed and how fast everything is?
My thoughts are, it's all going to hell and it's hopeless. I mean, I think back to my day, when my family, as a family, would go to Tower Records in San Diego, and that was our Friday night. I got my allowance, my dad got paid, and we'd go for at least an hour and look at album covers and look at who's playing and who produced it. And I'd walk out of there spending my whole allowance, and that was a great family outing, and you would live with that record. You would listen to it hundreds of times. And now I just don't have the patience to do it, which is really sad. And if I was smart, I would go to an anti-TikTok help group to get off of it.
But it's all apps though. It's not just TikTok. I feel like the shortening of attention spans.
It's awful.
Yeah. And it feels unavoidable. I've gotten really big into crocheting and reading recently because I'm like,
oh, good for you.
I gotta take time away from my phone.
Yeah, that's a good realization. And I think a lot more people, hopefully, including myself, will get into that because it's not healthy. It is not healthy at all. And the whole music industry has changed so much where I don't think people value music as much as they used to because it's free. You don't have to spend your allowance to get access to a new record. $10 a month for iTunes or whatever, you have access to everything. So it doesn't mean as much as people that have invested their actual earned money. Um, gosh, I remember after the Michael Jackson tours, I had a good chunk of money, and I remember going in the record store, going, "Boy, I could buy 10 records."
Yeah.
And I could go home and live with this for a month. And now it's just all changed. And there's so much music now that everybody that's interested in music can record a record on their laptop.
Mm.
It takes a lot for music to surface to the top where a lot of people will hear about it. And there's some freaky things like Billie Eilish. They just put a record on Spotify, and it really resonated with people so much that they shared and shared and shared and shared, and it just boom. It was new and fresh.
Yeah.
It really made an impact. But it's really hard. It's really hard for a new artist to get out there, in part due to the attention span of people.
You're you're talking to a new artist. I know the struggle, and
Yeah.
I feel like people, especially like within the music sphere. I don't know, is it because it's kind of different being behind the scenes to music or what? But like people will just listen to a song, and go, "That's good, I like it," as opposed to, "Do you know how much time went into this one song?" Like we put out a single recently called Cassette, and it was mastered by Howie Weinberg, who mastered Nevermind by Nirvana. To us, there is no bigger fucking thing in the world that is like the peak. And then people were just like, "Yeah, we love the track. It's catchy." Like Friends and Family and stuff now. I mean, great song. And we're there. "What did you think of the mastering?" And they're like, "The what?" And we're like, "The mastering. Did you love it?" And it was mixed as well by Neil Avon, who's an incredible mixer. So we're there like, "Can't you hear it though? Can't you hear the magic?" And people were like, "I like the guitars, it was catchy." And we're there like,
Yeah.
you can't explain it to people what goes into making a track.
Yeah, and everybody perceives it completely differently.
Yeah.
Some people will listen to the lyrics, some people don't even hear the lyrics, they just hear the groove.
Mm.
And then you add AI to the mix.
Ah, don't even.
You know what? I mean, when drum machines first came along, drummers would go, it doesn't have a human feel, and it blah, blah, blah. And then everybody's using drum machines. With AI, my God, there's an incredible creator on TikTok and YouTube, Kelly Bosch, I think is her name. I think she worked in the animation studios, and she puts out the most incredible, surrealistic scenes that are all AI generated. And recently, I used Shazam because the music that goes with it is phenomenal as well. And I go, man, I love this artist. I love this vocalist. I want to know who it is. And it just comes up, it says AI. It's not even a real person or real music. And you can try to fight it, but I think it's hopeless. And really what AI is doing with the algorithm is what record companies have been trying to do for years. Like, this sells, people love this, let's get another person that sounds like this. Well,
Yeah.
now you do it with machines. You do a prompt that says make it sound human. I don't know where music is going. I'm just so grateful that I got in it when I did,
Mm.
because it's harder than ever right now.
I think like especially within like the artist sphere side of things, like there's room for just about anything. But I had this discussion with someone recently as well where they were like, "No, but AI is a tool, it can help you."
Yep.
And it's like, no, it does it for you. Telling something, "Write me a song," and then it writes you a song, and you're going, "I wrote the song." That's no.
Well, it's like anything. It's how you use it. There's
Yeah.
a phenomenal bassist, an Indian bassist named Mohini Dey, that's just incredible facility, and she's doing ads for one of the AI production apps,
Mm.
and she shows you. I just gave a prompt. I said, make this two chords, make it do this, this, and this. And then she showed how she took the basic part of that and added her own voice to it. I think a lot of people that are intimidated getting together with other humans, but are really, really creative, or if you get a creative idea at night and you can't pull the band together to make it happen, I mean, it's a possibility to, okay, here's the track. whether it's finished or not, you can say
Yeah.
this is what I'm after, then take it to the band to put their own ideas into it. Like I said, it's not going away. So
Mm.
finding a way to make it useful for yourself, I can see value in that, although I have not dipped a toe in it yet.
Me neither. I avoid it like the fucking plague.
Yeah.
Like you said, it's gonna become it's gonna get to the point where it's gonna be everywhere and there won't be much you can do about it. But I'm holding out as long as I possibly can. Because I feel like you said, like with drum machines and with things like that, or even like with things like loop pedals, there was pushback in the beginning.
Sure.
But
Always.
but I do feel like there's a big difference between that and what we're seeing in the current charts. I read something recently about shit. It was some radio station in England, I think it was, where they have like a spotlight on artist of the month, and the artist that they spotlighted this month was entirely AI,
Wow.
entirely no human at
Yeah.
all. Like,
Part of the thing at this point, anyway, is they can't tour. And that there's a human connection of people coming to
yeah,
your shows that can't be replicated. And I also remember I got into, for the first time, a country artist, Brad Paisley, who's a lot more well known in America than I think other countries. But he's just phenomenal. Great guitar player and a very creative songwriter and a great sense of humor. And I went to his show, and I don't listen to country music other than him. And I went to his show, and there was another country band that was opening. And to me, they both sounded very similar, but there was something about Brad and the energy that he brought as a human that just took it over the top, where the other guy, I couldn't even tell you who it was. But having said that, gosh, the last time I was in Japan, I was in the airport flying home, and there was a TV on display. I don't know if they were selling TVs or selling this hologram artist. Yeah, it was really bizarre, and this was years ago. And to me, it was almost like Hello Kitty, where people see this animation, they go, "Great, I'm going to get a Hello Kitty guitar and Hello Kitty T-shirts." Whoever's into that stuff, and then there's a hologram that's between the T-shirt thing and a human, which is never going to happen. It's somewhere in between. And they were doing concerts, hologram concerts, so you could actually go to see the thing that had been created.
it's like ABBA. Aren't ABBA doing a hologram tour as well?
I didn't hear about it, but it wouldn't surprise me.
I'm almost certain that's going on with ABBA at the moment. There's a hologram, or it was in England, because I remember seeing videos of it, and it's like people were like, "No way! Like you'd never know this is a hologram." And it was looking at the stage, you'd think it's real people.
Wow.
It's technology, man. It's crazy.
Yeah, it's so sci-fi. It's hard to get your head around.
But on the topic of concerts, do you have a show that was your favorite that you've been to as a listener, not as a performer?
You know what? I saw Toto last summer, and it was I think the best sounding concert I've seen that I in memory. And I told the sound guy afterwards, I go, "My God, I don't often reach out to the sound guy after a show and praise them, but God damn, it makes all the difference in the world if you can hear every instrument clearly." It was a triple bill with Christopher Cross and Men at Work and Toto, and it was just beautiful. There's so many shows that even after I played with Jeff Beck, I went to almost I think every tour that he did after that. And his sound is just the most phenomenal guitar sound you'll ever hear. So I would say every show that I saw of his was the best. And there's another one that there was a record, uh, a group called Afro Celt Sound System. I think they ended up on Peter Gabriel's label, and I got to see them live, and it's just phenomenal. I love African-based stuff, and for such a big band, I mean, there must have been 8 people on stage in a smaller kind of place. It was phenomenal that they were able to tour and hopefully make a profit.
Yeah.
But I love that stuff as well.
Yes, as I was just wondering, because one of some of the best shows I've been to, it's going back a while now, but I saw Linkin Park years back at Madison Square Garden with my mom, and it's an absolute standout just in terms of energy and electricity on stage.
Mm.
And I haven't felt that since until I went to see 21 Pilots.
Hmm.
I went to see them in Dublin last year, this year, sometime recently. And I find that now I take in music completely differently because like that I'm looking at fills Josh is doing, or I'm looking at they have little drum risers that they go out onto the crowd on,
Oh,
and they're held up while Josh is playing the drums, and I'm there thinking, okay, how are you doing that? Like how is this still sounding good? How much of this is playback? I'm looking at lighting, and I feel like
right.
it's my concert experience is completely different to what it used to
Sure.
be.
Yeah, that's kind of the downside of getting deep, deep, deep into music and really studying it is instead of just being there and letting the experience wash over you, you start to get analytic about it.
Yeah.
It can take away from it, but you still appreciate the top artists. I remember I saw
Mhm.
Weather Report a couple times, and I mean every musician was at the top of their game, just phenomenal. Wayne Shorter, there's a three-part documentary on him that is one of the best documentaries I've ever seen. And just to experience musicians that are on that level is just so inspiring. You know, musicians that you go, okay, I'm never going to reach that level, but I sure can appreciate it forever and be inspired by it.
Do you have anything recently that you've been super inspired by? Could be an album, could be a song, could be an artist that you're really loving.
Oh gosh, my mind is drawing a blank other than these, you know, it's almost like fireworks on YouTube or TikTok that just like blam, that's amazing. I'm gonna share it, and
And then it's
then
gone.
I see a squirrel and I'm somewhere else. So
Yeah, it can be hard to try and keep track of things and to try and keep up with things, especially like that with how fast everything moves, that somebody could be number one globally. And then a month from now, people are like, who? Who is that?
yeah, yep, yeah, it's hard. Well, that's another thing that Frank DeLeo, Michael's manager, said. It's easy to make anybody a star. It's difficult to keep them there because people get bored. You know, you got to reinvent yourself. The record companies want you to do the same thing you did before that was successful.
Yeah.
And as an artist, you don't want to do that. And it's Joni Mitchell, when she came out with the Shadows and Light record with Wayne Shorter on it and Jaco Pastorius, the record company said, you're going to lose half your followers. And as an artist, she didn't care. That's where she needed to go. And I'm glad she did because it's some of my favorite Joni stuff.
It's interesting as well that you bring up like labels and people wanting you to kind of rehash what's already come before you because it worked. Because
Yep.
you see it a lot now. Recently the 80s is the biggest thing at the moment, like aesthetically, visually. I mean, you've shows like Stranger Things, um, but sonically as well. A lot of the charts lately, a lot of charting hits or a lot of popular songs are super 80s inspired.
Hmm.
And what do you think of that? What do you make of that? Do you like seeing the kind of resurgence and the outpouring of love for it?
You know, I didn't know that was happening, but I'm really grateful because when I'm home in the summer, I play with an 80s tribute band. Or not tribute band, an 80s band. We do Yes and Toto and Van Halen. And to me, I suppose that was the time of life I was really growing up and growing into playing on stage the first time around, doing covers long
Yeah.
before I got into Michael Jackson's band. Well, I got in his band at 87, so and I graduated guitar school in 79, so between those years I was really in learning covers and getting used to playing on stage. And to me that era was extremely vibrant. Uh, I remember sitting in front of MTV, you know, Michael Jackson's Thriller. They were advertising that for weeks before it happened, and you stayed home because you couldn't record it. You stayed
Yeah.
home to watch that stuff live. I remember the first Bon Jovi video that came out was really powerful, and ZZ Top. Every time they came out with something, they had such a great sense of humor that you wanted to see the first airing live. And now it's like, meh, I'll get to it when I get to it. So it's very much a different time.
Yeah, the 80s thing, at the moment it's massive. Like the amount of music, like even down to like Sabrina Carpenter's newest album is super 80s inspired. Like there's a lot of country, I guess, going on as well, kind of interwoven. But like 80s synths, big sounds, it's in at the moment. And then like I said, with shows like Stranger Things, where the entire thing is set in the 80s. What's the word? The costuming and the music, the soundtrack even, is all that style of music. It's influencing what's popular and what's going on now.
Hmm. I think also as time moved on since the 80s, things got more and more fragmented. Once you got high speed internet, everybody gets in their little bubble of algorithms. And before that, it was a lot more condensed. And then you go back to the 60s when the Beatles hit. In America, there was 3 TV stations. And God, I want to say a third of America watched the Beatles on what was called the Ed Sullivan
It's
Show.
yeah.
So there was a level of unity in every little town that everybody knew those songs. Everybody knew when the new record was coming out, and it was the most exciting thing ever. And you would share articles on them. And now I can't imagine, I never had kids, but I can't imagine parents trying to understand what the hell their kids are listening to. you know, except
Yeah.
some parents will turn their kids on to the 80s and that's where their heads are at. That
Yeah.
always blows my mind when really young people even know who Led Zeppelin is. Like, why do you even know that? That was so long before you were even born. And
Yeah.
I can't imagine when I was a teenager being into Frank Sinatra. That wouldn't have happened, you know?
I guess
Or
when you
Benny
put it like
Goodman.
that, yeah. What you said about algorithms, it's so true that everyone has their own pocket of the internet. Something that in my
Yes.
pocket is viral you might have never heard of.
Yeah, yeah. I put this 80s band together before COVID, and I kept thinking, well, should I update the sets and add some stuff from the 90s or a lot more current? And there's some songs I really like, but I don't even know if people in the audience would know it. Even though it was a #1 hit on some chart, I at least I know all of these 80s songs everybody's heard.
And they like.
Yeah, and that's the point of the whole cover band is so that everybody knows the songs and will get up and dance.
Do you have a favorite song to play live overall?
Uh, with the Michael stuff, Human Nature, I really like that a lot. It's kind of like in my DNA, being able to watch him and how his body moved and how he sang that song live was always phenomenal. As far as my 80s band, we have a couple of different Van Halen medleys that I love to do because they're always a bit of a challenge. And trying to program and go back and forth with the amp modelers and try to get the Van Halen sound. Because now you can get the actual tracks, just the guitar track, and just A, B, and go back and forth until you are nuts from trying to listen to get that sound. Um, it's always a challenge. And that's what's cool about, especially up and coming players getting into cover bands, is if you're playing 40 songs a night, you have 40 different styles and 40 different guitar sounds that you're trying to emulate. It's a challenge to do it right, to do it really well. And I don't normally go out to see other cover bands or even other tribute bands, but if I hear about somebody that's doing it really well, it's very satisfying. I remember, God, years ago, I was in Canada, and I went out after I think I had a workshop, and I went to see a cover band that was covering some tunes from David Lee Roth when he had Steve Vai in the band, and those guys nailed it. It was just phenomenal. I enjoyed that night so much. But then, if I go out and see a band that's shit, I don't ever want to go out again. I made all that effort to drive into town and park and pay the cover, and then you guys suck. I don't want to risk doing that again. So I usually wait to hear good reports.
Yeah, there's a band here that goes around. I don't know, do they go outside of Ireland, but they're called Queen. So Queen with a W. And they're a Queen tribute. And anyone I've known that's seen them have been like, they are fucking incredible.
Hmm.
Like everything
Yeah,
about them from aesthetics to sound to what they do, like actually live as opposed to backing. Apparently they're nuts.
that is not easy to cover Freddie
Mm.
Mercury. And in fact, there's a company I'm working for called Sierra Music out of Argentina. And the way the agent started was he was a big Queen fan, and one of his friends said, you need to come into this club. This was 25, 30 years ago, and hear this Queen tribute. And he signed them, and they've been with him ever since, and they're doing arenas. And he showed me on his phone, he goes, here's a promo. And I did a double take. I looked back at him, and I go, it sounds and looks exactly like Freddie Mercury.
Gee.
I mean, there's so many talented people out there. In fact, there's a show in England. When I was with Jeff Beck, I used to watch the BBC, and there was a show of tributes. And they had some phenomenal people. I remember they had somebody that was doing Chrissy Hine, sounded exactly like her and had the bangs in her eyes and the whole thing. And, you know, especially when you can't see the real people, the real bands. They've either retired or they're dead. A really great tribute band can really get the audience riled up and give them the next best thing.
And nothing brings people together like music.
Absolutely. And boy, do we need it right now, boy.
Well, look, Jennifer, I'll let you go. I've taken up enough of your time. Thank you so much. This was an absolute fucking blast.
Sure. I'm glad we could hook up the time.
I really am a massive, massive fan. So is my brother.
Thank you.
We're huge fans of you and everything. It's especially for me, like as a woman trying to make it in the music industry, looking at someone like you and trying to learn and emulate, but in my own way. You're fucking rad as hell, and I really appreciate you taking the time to sit and talk.
Well, thanks so much for having me, and good luck with your band and getting in the studio. Just remember, breathe.
It's easy to say when you're not on a time limit.
That's the thing, man. I tell people that if you get nervous on stage, there's nothing more helpful than taking a deep breath. It calms you down and makes you think more clearly. So, buen suerte.
Thanks a million, love. Go on, look after yourself, and I hope you feel better. And that's it for this talk, you guys. I always say that this style of video is my absolute favourite to make. And it's for good reason. I love hearing people's stories. I love getting to hear what inspires them, what makes them want to do what they do, how they get into what they do. Again, massive thank you to Jennifer for sitting and talking when she didn't have to. I love it when you can see that somebody has a love for what they do, and it's so evident with her. So yeah, thank you guys for watching. Thank you, Jennifer, for being here, for talking. It's difficult as a musician, especially in today's day and age. So like an up and coming musician like myself who hasn't been like on the scene at all really. But for me to get to talk to somebody like her and to get to learn some little advice and little tips and tricks from her, it means an awful lot. So yeah. Again, thanks Jennifer. Thank you guys for watching. I hope you enjoyed, and I will talk to you all soon.